Welcome to Encroachment Sports Talk. This is a great time of the year in sports because we basically have all four major professional sports in the spotlight. And why can we say that now? Because the NFL draft is coming up this week, which is a fun time for all you draft junkies like Chris and myself. So we're just going to jump right into it. And usually with any draft, maybe last year was a bit of an exception, but with any draft, the potential franchise quarterbacks are always worth talking about. So, Chris, what is your opinion on who do you got at your top and maybe second quarterbacks going into this draft?
Okay, yeah, so good question. First, I want to say this draft for us is both our teams are not going to have as much ammunition as they normally do. So we're going to be talking about it as a whole and not necessarily from a perspective of our teams, but it's still one of my favorite times of year. I just love it because what you're going to be able to do now is 5 years from now, you're going to look back and say, wow, there were a number of really superstars that came out of this draft, and then you're going to see some wipeouts that came out of this draft. So to me, the back testing of the results, and I know you do this for the Dolphins, but in general, I like to look back at the talent and see, did it work out or did it not work out? Because there's no real science to this, as you know. There's a lot of leeway there. There's some art to this, not all science.
Yeah.
So the first one I've got is not probably and this one too can be switched. I mean, a lot of this is just really subjective. Bryce Young, he's number one Carolina. So Carolina needs a quarterback desperately. His weakness, let's start with that because you're probably going to bring it up immediately. He's 5'10".
Yeah.
I don't know if he's two bills soaking away.
Kyler Murray.
Yeah, right, exactly, Kyler Murray. But I'm going to say maybe he's a Drew Brees or Russell Wilson. So I think he's got better character than a Kyler Murray. And obviously he's a born leader, did amazing things at Alabama. He's accurate with the ball. He's obviously a great scrambler. So I think you could do a lot worse than Bryce Young. But so he would be number one. But number 1 and 2 could easily be switched. Number 2 would be, although I'm hearing things from the Texans that they may not take a quarterback, but they need one desperately, and that's CJ Stroud. Big arm, pocket passer. He's accurate as heck. And very smooth in the pocket. His weakness is not really a running threat, which in these days I think you need to at least have a bit of a running threat. He's certainly got the physique to run, but he just doesn't do that very often. But he's got a great pedigree. The comparisons for him have been like a Jared Goff, who's been on and off, and a Joe Burrow, who's like 1 in a million. So if he's anywhere near a Joe Burrow, the Texans will get a steal.
Yeah, I'm with you on the top 2 quarterbacks in terms of who they are, but full disclosure, my daughter is about to commit to the Ohio State University, so yes. I might have a little bias here. I would pick CJ Stroud if I were the Panthers. The reason being is he's 2 things. He's got the stronger arm, and he's got more size. I just worry if I were taking Bryce Young about the size and the durability, especially since one of his strengths is his escapability. Right. That means he's going to be moving around, evading tacklers, and it doesn't always work. You're going to take some hits. And at 5'10", I don't know how he got to 204. He must have fattened up and then cut some weight.
It was before a fight, he put on some
exactly, because I don't think he ran the 40 at the combine, right? Yeah, so he probably cut down before his pro day. He's 195 pounds soaking wet. Yeah. So that's what scares me. He's a special talent. Although, and you see the Dolphin behind me, but it's weird when you watch highlights, you can't help but equate them to other similar quarterbacks. But I see Tua when I see his Alabama highlights. Tua had some amazing escapability and, kind of like bouncing around back there and then coming up for air and throwing a stupid ill-advised pass that somehow finds somebody wide open in the end zone, and Bryce Young does the same thing. Bryce Young does more with his legs than Tua did, but sort of what they did in the pocket. So that said, I believe that Young has the talent. If you have 2 really strong quarterbacks, I go with the guy who's likely to be more durable. So
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I can easily flip those, and a lot of people say that because of the size, Stroud will go first. It's one of those things where he was so productive at Alabama. who knows?
But CJ Stroud threw 41 TDs last year for Ohio State, so they're both super. They're both 1 and 1A.
Yeah, did you know that he had 6 TD passes in 3 different games? That's
nice.
That's crazy. I mean, that's crazy.
So the one thing, again, being a Tua homer, I went back and looked. It's like, why is there so much love for Bryce Young, and there wasn't as much? I mean, there would have been had he not been coming off the horrific hip injury, but Bryce Young had 170 quarterback rating in his best year, which is pretty amazing. Tua had 200.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Tua was doing everything Bryce Young did and then some. So anyway, that said, we'll see what happens once they get there. But these are 2 quarterbacks that will start on day one and hopefully be productive.
Yeah, and not get injured as you worry about.
Yeah, I think what's interesting when I look at the quarterbacks is, who do you like between 3 and 5? That's where I think the media, there's a lot of different opinions. What is your thought? Who do you like at number 3?
So 3, Anthony Richardson, and he'd be going to the Colts at number 4. They need a quarterback desperately. But he's very, very, very raw. I mean this in that he's got a strong arm, he's got ideal size, great mobility, but he's super inaccurate. So he would need to sit for a year at least and pick up his accuracy. But the kind of comparison that you're getting, if he was truly what reaches his potential, the comparison is a Cam Newton, which is an amazing talent. Although again, scrambling too much can limit a career. But I think maybe he's 3, and then you've got, as you're going to tell us, there are probably 2 to 3 more that could easily go in the first round and could mess up this order at any time. So who would you think those would be?
So I have a different opinion. I tend to shy away from the workout warriors that didn't have production in college. So I'm not a big fan of Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. And then let me tell you why I don't like Richardson and Levis, who I like more, and then I'll tell you who I like at number 3. Richardson, as you mentioned, super inconsistent, as is Will Levis. Will Levis played in a pro-style system in college, so that should be an advantage of him stepping into the NFL, but he threw for 19 TDs and 10 picks his senior year. That doesn't sound like a lot of interceptions in college, but my number 3 quarterback threw for 2 interceptions all year. And Will Levis, I like Richardson over Levis because Richardson, his strength is running the football. And Will Levis can do that, but that's not he doesn't have the gift that Anthony Richardson has. So as Levis struggles back there, he's going to be forced into mistake after mistake. And I see a career kind of like Zach Wilson in New York. So if I were, I know Mel Kiper Jr. is pushing Will Levis as the number 2 quarterback prospect. And
yeah, he's calling him poor man's Josh Allen, the whole thing. I mean,
that's his upside, right?
Yeah.
But what are the odds he becomes Josh Allen? What are the odds Josh Allen even became Josh Allen?
That's it. I mean, he was very raw out of Wyoming, as you remember.
Yeah.
He could throw the football 60 yards, but I mean, accuracy was a problem.
So who do I like at number 3? I know he's 25 years old, but I like Hendon Hooker. He just when I watched Tennessee
play, his last name, Mark. Jesus.
Well, there's always that. But this is a family show. So I'm going with Hendon. Mr. Hendon he's cerebral. He's a coach's son.
Yeah.
He can make all the passes. I love the deep balls he throws. It seems like every time I would watch, he would hit up with Hyatt on a super deep ball, and I felt like they were showing replays or something. He would do. There was one game I think he threw for 5 TDs. To the same guy.
Combination.
And then he doesn't tend to do it with his legs, but he can. He's definitely the same with CJ Stroud. I like Tom Brady would. If you got people worried about your arm and the middle of the field opens up, you can run for the first down and slide. That's all you got to do is get the first down. You don't need to play Justin Fields and run for 75 yards. So I just like Hendon Hooker, and I think he's a tier below the top ones, but he's worth a flyer. I don't know what I'd do if I were in, well, I do later, we'll get to it. If I were in the cold spot, but, you know, I think there's a clear one and 1A, and then there's a drop to these next three quarterbacks. But out of those three, I like Hooker the most.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, I would equate him to a slightly, obviously younger, but upgraded Geno Smith, who, but
I don't know if he is much younger.
yeah, well, exactly.
25.
That's a good point. But remember, Geno sat on the bench for like a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a good call. I like it. I thought I was very impressed when he played. I forget it was whether it's Alabama or Georgia, and they beat him in Tennessee, and it was. I mean, he had just an amazing game. I mean,
Yeah.
So, who else? Anybody else out there that
don't.
piques your interest?
I didn't do a lot of prep for this show, and I haven't studied it much, but during the season, I really like Jalen Hall from BYU. Or I don't know if it's Jalen, maybe I think it's Jalen.
Yeah.
Or Jaron or something. The BYU quarterback, he's also old, but he's sort of a poor man's Mahomes, ex-baseball player, slings it, and you know, he could get into trouble, but you never know. Like, that's the kind of guy I would take in the 5th round and beyond, and you never know. You may get a Brock Purdy kind of, you know, like you may hit on somebody.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough when you're at the top of the draft and you have to hit on the guy.
Well, that's
versus being able to take some flyers. How about you? You like any guy, any sleepers?
Well, no, I got all eyes on May for next year. That's the guy I really like out of Carolina. But
oh yeah.
Yeah, he's I think he's going to be outstanding. I think unless he gets injured, he's going to be the #1 pick. I mean, but this is a fairly strong draft class for quarterbacks overall, but it's pretty strong next year too. So, you know, we'll see.
Well, great. This was a fun topic. We'll be doing a few more here in just a bit. Thank you.
Good.